Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 905, September the 22nd, 2019, Sunday. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning. Just a reminder to get your votes in on this video for this week's Dumbass of the Week. Boy oh boy, that's going to be a tough one. Lots of good competitors in the running this week. So be sure and get your comments in for Dumbass of the Week on the comments section of this video, and I'll try not to miss any. I think I forgot Rocker Mom last week. I don't know how that happens. I have like 3 different methods I use to go through the comments, and I hopefully get them all. But it still never fails that I miss 1 or 2, and I really don't understand how that happens. But last week it could have been a difference, because last week we had a tie for first place, and Rocker Mom's vote could have been the tiebreaker. So that's why it's disappointing when I have that happen. But I'll do my best. Remember to get your comments in by 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday evening, because I usually tally up the votes like around 8:30, somewhere between 8:30 and 9 o'clock, and before I do the video for Monday. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and, as you know, yesterday, the title of my video yesterday was Something Stinks about this whistleblower story. And what I meant by that is that I knew there's some pieces missing here. There are some things going on here that we don't know about. So in the 24 hours from the time that I did this video, that video, to the time I'm doing this video, we now have some new revelations. So exactly what I suspected was the case. And there are still some things that stink. We have a few more of the pieces, and now we understand much more. But there's still a couple things I'm still, thinking there's still a couple more things to shake out of this thing before we finally get to the bottom of it. And I think it very likely will happen. So anyway, let's go ahead and get back on this story and cover the background of what we learned so far, along with the new information, and see where that puts us. And this is, again, this is kind of like, I almost feel like as many times as this has happened, that they come out with a fake news story, it gets debunked, they get egg on their face, they just forget about it, they don't apologize, they just kind of spin the narrative and go for the next thing. And you got to wonder how the viewers of these liberal networks continue to put up with this. I mean, at some point, don't they realize that they constantly are being fed false information, fake news, and the fake news always has to go back and retract what they said, or walk it back, or flip the narrative, or whatever. You got to wonder how long people are going to continue to allow themselves to be abused in this way. But it goes on. So, at this point, it's almost like I do these TowerGate videos, and I feel like I'm recapping an episode of Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get back into this particular episode of Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. Okay, so as the whistleblower plot unravels, we have learned the following things, and this would include the new information. Okay, yesterday, Saturday, the foreign minister of Ukraine told the Euronews that he was on the phone call with Trump and the PM, the Prime Minister, Vladimir Zelensky, back in July of this past year, and he says that Trump never tried to apply any pressure to investigate the Bidens. Yesterday, the foreign minister of Ukraine told Euronews that he was on the phone call with Trump and the Prime Minister, Vladimir Zelensky, back in July. He says that Trump never tried to apply pressure to investigate the Bidens. Boom. That pretty much blows up the narrative. Let's continue. Also, news reports show that it was Ukrainians that came to both the Obama and Trump administrations to report on the corruption around Ukraine, the DNC, the Clinton campaign, and the FBI during the 2016 election. Former Ukraine ambassador Marie Yana Yovankovich, who's a Trump hater, refused to grant visas to these Ukrainian officials. that were wanting to come to the U.S. and expose the corruption. And this happened back in 2018. Yovanovitch was appointed as Ukraine ambassador by Obama in 2016. Trump removed Yovanovitch from her post in May of 2019. This, of course, is laid out very clearly in my timeline, and also Cheryl Atkinson did an extensive dive into Ukraine, and she points this out very well. In fact, I think that's where I got that information in my timeline, where she points out that on more than 3 or 4, I think it was 3, at least 3, maybe 4 occasions, these Ukrainian officials tried to come to the U.S. to provide this information to the Obama and Trump administrations about the things that were going on in Ukraine in 2016 regarding the elections, regarding the Hillary Clinton campaign, the DNC, and Ukrainian officials working together to try to stop Trump and to try to dig up dirt on Trump and Manafort. And the liaison here was this DNC operative, Chalupa, Alexandria Chalupa. We know that they had set up, the FBI had set up an office, and now we find out, not just in D.C. at the Ukraine embassy, but also at the U.S. embassy in Kiev. Comey put a man there who reported directly to him as well. So yes, it's also in my timeline about Marie Yovanovitch. We talked about her many months ago, back in May, I assume, when she was fired. And of course, that's when we first learned that she had been refusing to grant the visas to these Ukrainian officials who were trying to bring this information to the Trump administration so that they could investigate it. Finally, getting back to the information, finally, after multiple failed attempts to disclose their evidence to the U.S. government, the Ukraine whistleblowers were able to get the U.S. State Department to look at their evidence. And this is since Trump became president. The State Department then, having spoken with and looked at the information from these Ukrainian officials, inquired, or however you want to word it, but they essentially asked Giuliani. The U.S. State Department went to Rudolph Giuliani and said, hey, will you go take a look at the, or go on a, I believe he described it as a fact-finding mission. The State Department asked Rudy Giuliani to go on a fact-finding mission on the Ukraine issue. So Giuliani went to Spain, where he met with Ukrainian officials, and once doing so, he relayed that information, what he learned, back to the State Department, and that information is now with the Justice Department. So there again, the whole narrative, the second narrative blown up. The first narrative was that Trump was trying to pressure the government of Ukraine to go after Biden. We now find out from one of the officials, Ukrainian officials, who was on that call, that in fact Trump did not pressure anybody to go after the Bidens. And now we learn that it wasn't even Trump or Giuliani who went to Ukraine trying to get them to do anything here. It was actually Ukrainians who were coming to the Trump administration. Just the reverse. That's two of the main points blown up. The fake news gets blown up again. The anvil has just fallen on the head of the coyote again, having just freshly been blown up with some TNT. Additionally, Giuliani told Chris Cuomo on CNN that he has sworn affidavits from 5 Ukrainian officials who say that they were brought into the White House, the Obama White House, and were told to go dig up dirt on Trump and Manafort. And this meeting occurred in January of 2016, before Trump was even the nominee. January of 2016, Obama was inviting Ukrainian officials into the Oval Office to instruct them to go get dirt on Manafort and Trump. Now, Obama would have only been able to make this kind of a call and to have this kind of a meeting if he had been made aware of this other information, which had to be coming directly from Chalupa. And we know that Chalupa has told us that she was giving information directly to Glenn Simpson, Michael Isikoff, Hillary Clinton, the DNC, and some members of the Senate who had formed what they called this working group on Ukraine, which was mostly Democrats, but also included Senator Magoo, the late Senator Magoo. So clearly, this information was passed from one of these entities, either Magoo, the Rotten Reverend, the DNC, or someone. This information got to Obama, and that's why he would have this information. That's why he would bring these Ukrainian officials. And of course, remember, it's in my timeline, which we got from Cheryl Atkinson's story, that Chalupa had been coming back and forth from Ukraine to the U.S., briefing Simpson, briefing Isikoff, briefing Hillary Clinton, briefing the DNC. And at some point, and this working group from the Senate, and at some point, she got 3 Ukrainian parliamentary members, 3 members of the Ukrainian parliament, to also come with her to D.C., where she set up this meeting. So I wonder if this meeting that Chalupa bragged about setting up with the 3 Ukrainian parliamentary officials is the meeting that's being described here. Or if this was another meeting. Regardless, Giuliani says he's got 5 Ukrainian officials who've signed a sworn affidavit saying they were brought into the White House, the Obama White House, and they were told to go dig up dirt on Manafort and Trump in January of 2016. So the plot to go after Trump from the White House began long before Operation Crossfire Hurricane, and we can assume that this is not the beginning of it. And of course, we know about those contractors getting access to the NSA database. That was back in November of 2015. Just as we've suspected and known all along, the targeting of Trump began long before 2016 even. And at this time, Trump was looking good. He was in the lead, but it wasn't a sure thing in January of 2016, certainly not in November of 2015, that he would even be the nominee. Which leads us to believe at this point, we can only ascertain from this, that these operations were going on probably against the top tier of the GOP candidates. Had Trump not won the nomination, had it been Rubio or Cruz or someone else, this plot would likely have been on them. Regardless of who the GOP nominee was, the Rotten Reverend Clinton, the Obama administration, and others were obviously working to rig the election against them through illegal activities, colluding with foreign governments before they even knew who the nominee was. We now learn, in addition to everything else, oh, and by the way, Giuliani told Cuomo that Giuliani suggesting that he is going to turn over the sworn affidavits that he has to the Justice Department or a prosecutor. Now, if they're looking into the origins, if Barr and Durham are looking into the origins of Spygate, as I've said many times. Go back and look at my timeline. It's all right there. You will find yourself in Ukraine. That is really the first origins of the Spygate deal right there. That was back in late 2014 and all through 2015. All this stuff was going on in Ukraine. That is where the origins of all this began. So I would think that this would be valuable information to Mr. Durham. We know he spent most of the summer traveling throughout Europe. We can assume that he spent some of that time in Ukraine and has possibly had contacts with people there. Certainly this information has now made it to him because the State Department asked Giuliani to go look into this. Giuliani reported back, and the State Department then forwarded that information to the Department of Justice, which would be Barr. So he would now have this information. We can assume that he would be sharing it with Durham because Durham is looking into the origins. And of course we know that William Barr has been to the UK on at least 3 trips during the summer, including just a couple of weeks ago, he just returned from another short trip over to the UK. But now we're also learning that this so-called whistleblower did not hear the call or see the transcript him or herself, but rather was told about it by someone else who did hear the call or read the transcript. And he filed the report based on what this other person told him or her that they saw or heard. In other words, hearsay. So, obviously, we have various stupid Democrats, including Crazy Joe Biden, saying, well, we need to get the full transcript of released. Now, they know damn good and well that they're not going to release the transcript of this conversation between the president and a foreign leader. That would set a precedent that you just can't have. The president has to be able to have private conversations with foreign leaders. If you allow this transcript to be released and you set that precedent, that could be used by any Congress to request the transcript of any conversation that any president, Republican or Democrat, has with any world leader. This precedent can never, ever, and will never be set. And Schiff knows it, and Biden knows it. And if in fact this transcript was released, it would only prove that Trump did nothing wrong, said nothing wrong, wasn't pushing on them to investigate. Rather, it was Ukraine who was volunteering and trying to actually get the Department of Justice to cooperate with them. It was Ukraine that was pushing for the U.S. to cooperate with them on this investigation, not the other way around. Trump would be completely exonerated. But what would happen is that in that phone call, we would learn about the discussions from the Ukraine Prime Minister, where he's probably talking to Trump about the fact, yeah, we know that our previous government was involved in working with the Clinton campaign, the FBI, American journalists, this Glenn Simpson Fusion GPS character. They were all working in a cabal to try to damage the president, now President Trump, candidate Trump back then, and they would also learn about the dealings of the Bidens and their corruption and crimes in the Ukraine. But see, they know that the transcript will never come out. So they will come out every single day, Schiff and Pelosi and all the rest, and demand the transcript, knowing good and well it's not going to come out. And they don't want it coming out because it would hurt them worse than it would Trump. But they want to be able to go out and say every day that Trump is obstructing justice. Trump will not allow us to see, what he said to this leader. And of course, the left-wing media will run the narrative right on cue. And none of those dupes who watch, none of the lemmings who watch the lamestream media will ever sit there and think for themselves for about 1 minute to figure out, wait a minute, force the release of a transcript between a president and a foreign leader. If we make that the new rule, then any Congress could force any president to do that. That's not good. That's not good. But they're not that smart. That's why they watch CNN. Nothing we can do for these people. They're lost. They want to believe the lies they are told. They're like heroin addicts. waiting for their daily fix. Waiting for their daily fix of fake news. They need it. They need it to survive. It's their oxygen. They get up every day and they need another fake news, Trump's going to be impeached story to get them through the next 24 hours till they get their next fix. With CNN ready and waiting to give them the next injection of fake news. Get them through another day. So now the question comes. Now I would like to know who the whistleblower is. Oh, because I can absolutely guarantee you that this so-called whistleblower and the person who fed the whistleblower the information is almost certainly, well, absolutely deep state, but almost certainly tied to either Obama or the rotten Reverend Clinton, or both. This was a coordinated, calculated plot. It's not just some accident, not just some whistleblower. It's not what this was. This was an operation, essentially. Someone in the intel community, and there's a lot of reasons that you could cite. They could be trying to help out the intelligence community, Brennan and Clapper, because they know they're in deep shit. They could be trying to maybe think they're helping Biden. If that's what they thought, they did more damage than they did more harm than good. So it's really hard to speculate on the motive at this point, but we know the motive was bad. It was a bad motive. So yes, I would like to learn the identity of this whistleblower, and we should. And I wouldn't doubt what the name will be leaked out eventually. You can guarantee they'll be connected to the deep state, likely to the rotten Reverend, and almost certainly to Obama. And probably doing this to, in some way, benefit either the intelligence community, if it's coming from friends of Clapper and the intel community, or it could be coming from someone in the Clinton orbit, which would mean it's just part of the larger operation to take down Biden, which, as you know, many weeks ago, I said there will probably be a 6 to 8 week campaign to take out Biden that will probably begin sometime in September and would run through the end of October. They probably want they want Biden gone and destroyed by the end of October so that Hillary can meet the filing deadline. Now, the Democrat National Committee can move the filing deadline from November, and they probably will, and I expect that may happen because they make the rules. They can change them at any time. So the question now is, with the fourth debate coming up here in a couple of weeks, which desperate demo commie will now use this to go after Biden and take him out? My guess, just off the top of my head, would be Cory Booker, Spartacus, because he made a last-ditch plea and cry for help Saturday by tweeting out that his campaign needed to raise, I think, about $2 million in the next 30 days. And if they do not, he would probably have to leave the contest. So Cory Booker is desperately needing some cash. He needs to move up in the polls. He's the one probably showing the most desperation, although Kamala is in a very bad way. She's having to fucking move to Iowa, in her own words. Maybe she'll sell enough t-shirts to raise some money, I don't know. But she's also desperate. And it's going to be very, very difficult for them Demo commies who are at the bottom tier, who need something. It's going to be very hard for them to stay off of this Biden issue. Because anyone who will challenge Biden on this Ukraine issue, and if they want, they can look into what he did in China as well, and they can use that to really put a beat down on him and really hit him with a possible death blow. It's going to be very, very interesting to see in the fourth Democrat debate whether or not one of those candidates has the stones to go there. Now, the only problem with that is that you don't necessarily, you want someone else on that stage to do it. You don't want to have to be the guy to do it. You would almost have to want to be a sacrificial lamb, because a lot of times when you deliver the knockout blow to the front runner, you piss off so many of his people that it ends up taking you down too. Both people, it's like a duel where both people both hit their mark and they both die in the duel. That's kind of how that works out on a lot of occasions. It's hard to fire that shot, get it off, hit your target, and then walk away clean. It's very hard to do. There's usually severe blowback, especially if it's on the front runner. So it'll be very tricky, but we'll see if anyone makes that move in the fourth Demo-Commie debate. Well, it looks like after complaining about steaks and burgers being bad for the environment, the Demo-Commies today running for president showed up in Iowa for a steak fry. Showed up for a big steak fry, cooking up lots of steak. And so in Iowa, you probably won't hear many of these candidates talking about the fact that we need to get rid of beef, seeing as how Iowa is a major beef-producing state. They won't bring that up. In fact, you had Buddy Boy even working the grill. Yes, he's got a nice little Twitter video of him working the grill, cooking up those steaks, after he and his Demo-Commie buddies just about a week and a half ago told us we have to stop eating beef. Now he's there cooking it, along with his friends. They're all eating that steak. They're not worried about the environment there, are they? Of course not. Because it's all a hoax. Sweet F.A. Because it's all a bluff. Great band, by the way. Sweet. Desolation Boulevard. One of my favorites. A classic. More bad news for Ilhan Omar. Not her real name, by the way. Her real name is like Saeed or something. So more bad news for Ilhan Omar, not her real name. It appears that her brother / husband was enrolled at North Dakota State when she claimed in court that he was missing. So essentially what she did, it appears at this point, is in order for her and her siblings to get out of Somalia, they used the last name of another family named the Omars. 3 of them came here to the U.S., including Omar. 3 of her other siblings went to the U.K. Now, once getting here, she marries her brother, and then, I guess, to maybe get him over here, because the process goes much faster if you have a spouse. So she marries her brother in order to, I guess, to get him over here, and then decides, okay, well, now he's here, now I divorce him. And so then she goes to divorce him. And the reason she's divorcing him is telling the court that, well, he just left. Can't find him, don't know where he's at. When in fact, he was at North Dakota State, and she knew it. Because she was there too. My oh my. What a web of deceit. Crazy Joe Biden. He's got a lot of problems. The best thing he can do right now is shut it. Clamp it. He's the last person in the world that should be talking about any of this, knowing how he gaffes things. He's already on tape saying that he essentially extorted the Prime Minister Poroshenko of Ukraine, telling him, hey, either you fire the prosecutor or you don't get the billion. And then he laughs and says, well, what do you know, son of a bitch. A few hours later, the prosecutor's fired. That's called extortion. Now, Biden says that he never talked. He was asked by a reporter, and he replied, he was asked if he ever talked to his son about his business. And Biden's saying that he never talked to his son about business dealings. Joe Biden saying he never talked to his son about business dealings. Problem. And the problem is that his son, Hunter Biden, in a media interview less than a year ago, talked about the fact that he had discussed business dealings with his father when he was vice president. And it's not just Ukraine. In fact, Ukraine's the small ball. The big league corruption was in China. Big league corruption was in China. And that's not just with Hunter. That's with crazy Uncle Joe and his son. And he has another son who's also involved in this kind of crap. Now, John Kerry's son, or stepson, I don't know if it's son or stepson, but he was involved in business with Hunter Biden. But when he learned about Hunter Biden getting this lucrative position with this Ukrainian company, he dissolved his business relationship with Hunter Biden because he knew it was toxic. He's not that stupid. Clearly, Hunter Biden is a chip off the old block. Remember, his hobbies, prostitutes and coke. Prostitutes and coke. His younger brother dies of brain cancer about 2 years ago. And now, I think and then after that, he starts up having a relationship with his brother's widow. And then, a few months ago, he marries some woman that he'd only known for a couple of weeks. And he looks to me like he's still on the hard stuff, by the way. He's up. Just like Daddy. The nut doesn't fall far from the tree in this case. And Biden says that Trump is abusing his power and needs investigated. No, now that the facts are out, he didn't abuse any power whatsoever. He's looking into your abuse of power, actually, Joe. And you are the one that's ultimately going to be sucking wind on this deal. This could be the thing that takes him out. Right here. If, in fact, it's pursued, and that's the only question here, will the left-wing media pursue it? And they'll only do so on the orders of the rotten reverend. Only on the orders of the rotten reverend. When she gives the word, they'll take him out. And it'll happen quick. They're rioting in Paris again. More anti-Macron rioting. So we have Macron and Trudeau, the two soy boys of the UN. Their globalist, New World Order, wet dream is drying up quick. Because 3 times blackface, and we don't know how many more. Trudeau says he don't know how many times he appeared in blackface. After the second one came out, he said there wouldn't be a third. And then the third one comes out. A couple hours later. Now he's saying, I don't know how many times I wore blackface. He doesn't know. So I don't know who his challenger is, but man, if you can't beat this guy, you suck. So he's on the ropes. And of course, Macron, he's been on the ropes for quite some time. The protests continue, and I don't see either of them Trudeau will certainly make it to the end of his term. Obviously, they're getting ready to have an election. But Macron, it's still dicey. He's got to last another, 3.5 years or something before their next contest. I don't know if he's going to make it. Papagalopoulos tweeting out, check out Biden corruption dealings in Cyprus. Yes, there too. So apparently Papagalopoulos, he knows a lot about Cyprus and the oil and energy business there. He knows a lot about it. And he says that it's not just China, not just Ukraine, but apparently Biden also involved in corrupt dealings in the oil energy sector in Cyprus as well. Finally, we have a poll out today, and they're actually polling the rotten Reverend Clinton. And she's polling at 30% compared to Trump right around 50%. And they're suggesting in the article that she would probably be polling 10% higher than she is. They think she'd be at 40 if she just would have accepted the election results. But the fact that she never has, and she's got this sort of sore loser attitude, is probably hurting her substantially, and they're showing she's sitting at 30. But 30, that puts her basically even with Biden and Warren. And once you get rid of Biden, then the only person standing in her way is Warren. Warren will be easy to take out. She's got more problems than Biden. Do not forget to get your vote in for Dumbass of the Week. I'll be back with you tomorrow. You guys have a good night. See you. Bye.